Hello and welcome to Scott Rock.
We're your hosts from Climb Scotland, Robert Mackenzie.
And me, Cal McBain, catch up with climbers every 2 weeks who have different epic tales to tell us.
We hope you enjoy the show.
And remember, when you're out climbing, be safe and do your buddy checks.
Hello, and welcome back to Scott Rock. This week we are joined by an instructor from Eden Rock now, actually. She used to work in Ratho, she used to work in TCA, she climbs all over the place. You might recognise her, she's pretty recognisable. It is Karishma Rogerson. She has been an instructor for the last few years, has been a climber since she's been in Scotland. And to be honest, until last year, I didn't know too much about Karishma until Callum asked a couple of questions, and wow, has she got a cool backstory. So yeah, I was route setting with Karishma one day and asked if she would mind sitting down and telling me this story. So in a panic, we both ran around Perth College desperately trying to find a room that we could do this recording in. That included a first aid cupboard, it included a disabled toilet, it included a janitor's closet, none of which we could actually get access to, but we did manage to find a room to do the recording in. It was quite a big room, so the recording isn't great, the audio is a bit sketchy sometimes. Apologies for that, Karishma. I promise next time we chat to you, we'll have a clean audio. But definitely worth listening to. She's got an amazing backstory and a really cool attitude to climbing as well. So yeah, sit back and enjoy the chat with Karishma Rogerson.
So, hi Karishma.
Hello, Robert.
This is possibly going to be one of the funniest episodes that we do. So me and Karishma today were route setting in Perth College for one of our Climb Scotland coaching academies tomorrow. And me and Callum have worked with Karishma a few times in the past, and you've told us a few stories that I think are just awesome. And when I walked in this morning, I think it'd be really good to get that as a podcast episode. So we have scoured the building at Perth College to find a room quiet enough, non-echoey enough. This is the best we could do that wasn't a disabled toilet or a janitor's cupboard or the first aid room.
Or didn't raise any eyebrows.
I mean, to be fair, deciding that we could actually have sat in a disabled toilet for 45 minutes together raised some eyebrows.
It did, yes.
I think it's possibly the weirdest place I could have possibly suggested to record an interview with two people sitting in a disabled toilet for 45 minutes.
I would have needed a chaperone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, does that need to be reported to HR? Is Jamie going to hear about this afterwards?
Probably.
Robert tried to lure Karishma into a disabled toilet. Well, I mean, thank you first off for sitting down, but and agreeing to do this. But thank you for being patient with all my stupid suggestions.
Totally fine.
So yeah, obviously, I think you'd agree with me in saying that you're not Scotland's number one female climber.
No.
You're not one of the sponsored athletes we see in the media all the time. No. You're very low key.
I'm very low key. Yeah.
Even though you are the extrovert of Eden Rock.
I am the extrovert of Eden Rock. I don't know if they'll agree, but
well, they can listen to this and determine themselves.
Yeah.
We're still finding someone that's more extroverted at Eden Rock.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you are, unless people have been to Eden Rock, have been to Ratho and know you from there, I think a lot of people that might listen to this aren't going to know you.
No, I think people would probably recognize me quicker because of my unique hairstyle.
It is rather recognisable, and there will be a photo that goes along with this on the podcast.
So yeah, they'll probably have an idea who it is.
Yeah. If you don't recognise Karishma's voice or you don't know her already, you you might recognise her hair from Ratho. It is the big frizz ball. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Very
cool.
recognisable.
Very recognizable.
I don't think I've seen anybody else at Ratho with hair like that.
Nah.
So yeah, hopefully you've seen her before, so you know who we're talking to today. But yeah, so I mean, I'm going to throw the ball back at you. Do you want to give us a little introduction of yourself? Who are you? Where in Scotland are you? Not right this second, but where do you work? What do you do?
Okay. Who am I? I'm Karishma Rogerson. Moved to Scotland about 7 years ago. Actually, over 7 years ago. It was 7 years ago on the 1st of March. From the Seychelles. Moved to Scotland, lived in Prestwick. Started climbing as a climbing taster at GCC back in 2000 and it would have been 2016, I think. And yeah, just caught the climbing bug, I guess.
I just want to highlight that she did say, you heard her right, she moved from the Seychelles, again, the Seychelles to Prestwick.
I mean, it's tropical in South Ayrshire. Have you not been there?
The tropical metropolis of South Ayrshire.
There's a Gulf Stream that just like changes the
honestly,
climate completely.
You can't see the roof of palm trees down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you came from the Seychelles and you ended up in Prestwick. You're not there anymore.
No.
You're Edinburgh based.
Yes. So after moving to Prestwick, after falling into climbing,
Falling into climbing is a nice way of putting it.
I trained up to be an instructor, and then TCA was my first job, my first climbing job.
I didn't
And
realise you worked at TCA.
yeah, I worked at TCA. I was the instructor there, and I started route setting at TCA with Gaz. Gaz was my route setting teacher. Took me under his wing. Taught me a lot of the stuff that I know today.
But some pretty skinny legs. Sorry, guys.
And then I got a job at Ratho, and I moved across to the East Coast, and I've been Edinburgh based since, but I now work at Eden Rock.
Cool.
So yeah,
So you've done a good loop of Scotland's best centres.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Started bouldering, went to the big roots wall, and then
Back to bouldering, gone
full circle.
Yeah,
Well, full circle would be ended up back at the Seychelles.
I guess. Yeah. Well, yeah. In the future, maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Well, we shall discuss that. Don't you worry. So yeah, the reason I wanted to do this was me and Callum spoke to you at Eden Rock a couple of months ago, and Callum, because he is the ever inquisitive person, I am not. I do forget to ask people general life questions. But Callum is the ever inquisitive philosopher, and he wanted to know what your sort of backstory was, what your origin story was.
We could just say that Callum's the listener in the relationship between the two of you, and you're the talker. Would that be accurate?
I mean, I wouldn't quite use the term relationship, but yeah.
Bro relationship.
Bromance.
Bromance. That's it.
There we go. Yes. Okay. Callum, what was it Callum described us as that day? What was it?
I can't remember what he said exactly, but it's like you see Robert and there's Callum. There's no Robert without Callum.
It was a weird non-monogamous relationship. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not know how to feel about that.
Compliment?
I mean, it's flattering. It's flattering. Right. Yeah. I'm going to go stay at his tonight. I've already complimented him on his short shorts, so I'm better behave myself.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so Callum was asking you about your sort of origin story, and it was definitely not what the two of us were expecting when you started talking.
Okay.
And this morning it dawned on me that I think that would be really good to one, having a podcast, but sort of dive into a little bit, because it's a part of the world that I don't know very well.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you said you came from the Seychelles. How long were you in the Seychelles for?
So I moved to the Seychelles in 2003, so that would have been 13 years altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you moved to the Seychelles. Where were you before that?
yeah, so I was born in Kenya,
There we go.
born in the Rift Valley,
Nice.
and then moved to the Seychelles when I was in my early 20s.
Right.
Yeah, but my mom's a Seychellois, which means she has Seychelles origins, but my father is a Kenyan.
Right. Sorry, what was that term? Seychelles.
Seychellois.
Seychelles.
Yeah, so a person from the Seychelles is called a
I
Seychellois.
did wonder that the other day. I was like, if I do a recording on this, how what am I going to call people that come from the Seychelles?
Seychellois. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. So yes, so she was from the Seychelles originally, and your dad was
Kenyan.
from Kenya.
Yeah.
And you were born in
I
Kenya.
was born in Kenya.
How old were you when you moved out? 13.
No, I was in Seychelles for 13 years, but
Right.
I was 21 when I moved out.
Oh right, so you lived out your entire childhood in Kenya.
Yeah. My
Oh, right,
my whole
cool.
childhood, yeah.
Cool, whole childhood in Kenya, and
Yeah.
then you were in the Seychelles for 13 years.
Yeah.
What a beautiful part of the world. And you were there for 13 years. I know that having done a little bit of rudimentary Googling on the Seychelles, there's quite a bit of granite kicking about. Correct me if I'm wrong, is it a volcanic island?
No, it's granitic.
It's not. It is just,
It is granitic.
right,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah, it's just big granite rock in the middle of the ocean.
But none of that attracted you yet. You didn't quite discover climbing,
No.
surrounded by all these beautiful
I
granite
didn't know
boulders.
that it was possible to climb them. To be fair, like the temperature in the Seychelles is a constant. Well, it's between 28 and 32 degrees all year round.
Nice.
So it's a little bit too warm, I think.
What you're saying is not good Connie's.
No. What I'm saying is, when the sun's out, people don't do anything.
Yeah.
So climbing is just a little bit too hard work in that temperature,
Yeah.
I guess.
So what did you do when you were out there? For 13 years in Seychelles, what were you? Who was it?
As a profession, I used to manage a printing press.
Right.
And then just before I left, I managed holiday chalets.
Right.
In
Again, we're going to come on to the holiday chalets in a second.
in my spare time, I used to build and race go-karts. And
Sorry?
I used to build and race go-karts.
Awesome, right?
And I had a sea kayak, so I used to do a lot of sea kayaking, a little bit of fishing off the sea kayak, a lot of snorkeling and diving.
You know, exactly what you want to do in the Seychelles.
Yeah.
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 Nice. When it's too hot to get in the sea.
Go in the sea, yeah.
You used to build and race go-karts.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
It
cool.
was one of my passions at the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I reckon at some point after this, we should organise a multi-climbing wall go-karting trip somewhere.
Okay.
Climb Scotland series.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Right, you're
Bring
on.
it on. Challenge accepted.
Okay. So, how did the decision come about then going from Seychelles to Scotland? Prestwick. Sorry, people that live in Prestwick, if you live in Ayrshire. I apologise.
How did it come about? It was actually romance that brought me to Scotland.
Aw.
It was a Scottish lad. Convinced me that the weather was better in Scotland than it was in the Seychelles.
How did that conversation go? Because I smell BS.
Well, I was green behind the ears because I didn't know what Scotland was. I'd never been before. No, I was happy to move, to be fair. It was a nice change. And I kind of see myself as a bit of a global citizen. And yeah, so change is a nice thing sometimes. And I love being here. Scotland's beautiful. It's a beautiful country.
When it's not right.
Even when it's raining.
You told us before that did you meet your mom in the Seychelles?
No.
No.
We met on a dating site. Online.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgot that part.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah, he was here. I was there. We were matched, and he came out to the Seychelles.
What was the distance between the Seychelles and Scotland?
5,630 miles.
You guys got matched over 5,000 miles away, and
Yep.
he went, "Cool, right? Let's go to the Seychelles."
Yep.
Nice. You must have had a really good profile.
Yep. I'm not telling.
Nice. And so he went out to the Seychelles. Did he stay out there for a bit?
Yeah, we stayed out there for about a year
Cool.
after we got married. And yeah.
And then he
And then
lied
we
to you and told you the weather was nicer in Scotland. Yeah. You have to have words in Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So you end up in Prestwick first. Is that where he was from?
No, so he was from South Lanarkshire in Lanark.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Prestwick was just. I've always lived by the sea. When I lived in Kenya, although I was born in the Rift Valley, we kind of moved to the coast when I was very young.
Right.
So I lived in Mombasa, which is a small little island, and then the Seychelles is surrounded by water. So I just felt like I needed to be close to the sea. So we settled in Prestwick. And yeah, it's a nice wee town.
I don't think I've ever actually been into the town of Prestwick.
It's actually quite a nice wee place. It's got its own wee. Actually, something that's quite unique about Prestwick is it has its own microclimate, and it's one of the reasons why they built the airport there.
All right.
Yeah, so it doesn't really get affected by fog and all the other.
Really?
Yeah,
What is that?
it's just the climate there is slightly different. I think it's something to do with the Gulf Stream, and it's kind of sits in a bay that's kind of sheltered by Arran.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, Aaron takes the brunt of anything coming in
I think so.
and diverts it.
Yeah.
That's really
I'm
interesting.
just aware of the fact that I've just said that on the podcast.
Yeah.
And someone out there is going to be shouting.
Oh yeah, you could anger some meteorologist somewhere.
Yeah.
Shouting on the computer. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, if
That's
you
what I
know the
thought
answer,
anyway.
email in. I'm gonna have to look that up afterwards. That's really interesting.
Ah.
So that's one of the reasons they built the airport there.
I think that's what I read somewhere.
Cooler weather.
Yeah, clearer weather.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how did climbing fit into this picture? When did that happen?
It was Sunday, nothing to do. Decided to try climbing. Went for a taster at GCC. So just booked a climbing taster. I'd never done climbing before. Didn't know what it was.
How did you keep it? Because I always find it interesting when people that haven't discovered climbing in any way, shape, or form before,
Yeah.
haven't got any connection to it, randomly decide to take it up. Like,
Yeah.
where did that inspiration come from?
I think I was just like online looking at things to do, and I just googled
There's
things
not
to
much
do in
Prestwick,
Glasgow.
so-
No. Well, there's a climbing wall in Kilmarnock now,
Yes, there is.
so
Just open.
yep, just open.
Go above adventure.
So I think I just googled things to do.
Yeah.
Glasgow, and then climbing came up, and I was like, oh, I've never done that before. Let's give that a shot.
Nice.
Booked a taster, and yeah, it was a really good experience. And he recommended doing the startup.
Yeah.
Which was 3-hour session split twice. So
Yeah.
you would attend one and then have a break and then attend another one. And yeah, I did the startup and then just got into climbing. I used to just go into GCC and climb and auto belay and boulder.
Yeah.
And do that quite a lot actually. I think I was in there maybe twice a week, 3 times a week initially.
Yeah.
And I got to know some of the instructors. I got to know Willis and Willie. And yeah, Willie was very helpful actually. He would see me in on my own and he would offer to belay me and he would give me wee tips for technique and getting better. And then
He is just the loveliest guy.
he's amazing.
Have
He's
you
a
listened to
legend.
his interview?
I have listened to his
It's so good.
It's so good.
So good.
He's a legend.
He is.
And he introduced me to some of the guys that climbed in there quite regularly, so I ended up climbing with them and
Nice.
they would belay me. And
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how quickly did you get kind of taken in by the community?
Very quick. It was very quick. I just felt like I belonged. Yeah, it was quite good. And then I kind of was not working at that time. I was working part-time, just doing some IT stuff. And I decided, since I couldn't get a job, I would train up as an instructor and just try and get a part-time job doing instructing and IT. Yeah, so I did my CWI training, CWA at the time, at Ratho, with Ewan
Oh, yeah.
Whittaker. And it was amazing. It was like so good. I learned quite like so much stuff that I didn't even know was relevant for being an instructor. And I think at that point I realized that I really wanted to do this. I really wanted to be a climbing instructor. So I organized to shadow quite a lot. At TCA were brilliant. Derry organized shadowing stuff for me at TCA. And I shadowed some guys at GCC, some of the instructors. And then I did some sessions at Ratho, and within 3 months, I felt like I was ready to do my assessment. And that would have been January, 2016, and someone said, "You're going to do your assessment in Ratho in January." You're crazy.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know what they meant, but I did it anyway. And I got through it, and TCA just took me in. I got a job there almost straight away. And I started instructing at TCA, worked there for about a year before I applied for a job. They were looking for instructors at Ratho, and it was just part-time, and I applied for that and got into Ratho and just kind of stuck there for about 4 years and a bit. Yeah.
I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So you obviously you went for this bored Sunday, lazy Sunday afternoons to GCC, hung out with Preston on the taster session, and then you went to the intro course. But that first session that you did, was it kind of like you kind of fell in love with it then? Did it grab you then, or were you kind of a little bit intrigued by it, kind of enjoyed it, but Preston saying you should do the intro course, did that give you a bit of a drive?
No, I think I had kind of already fallen for it in
Yeah.
that first session, and I knew that I wanted to do more climbing. I didn't know I wanted to be an instructor at that point, but definitely knew I wanted to climb more. I think I liked the challenge.
Sort of personal, the physical challenge or the mental challenge?
Both.
Yeah.
I liked that it was both physically challenging and mentally challenging. And I think I have a thing for heights. I do. It sounds weird.
Are you the same as me, that you just feel really comfortable standing on small ledges high up?
Yeah. I think that takes me back to my childhood. So growing up in Kenya, we lived in a block of flats. And it was a really tall block of flats, and we were on the top floor, and above us was I don't know what you would call it in the UK, but it was like a terraced bit, and you could go onto the terraced bit. So Mombasa's
roof garden.
So Mombasa's a really warm town, and we would, as kids, we would spend so much time up there, my brother and my sister and I, and we'd be riding our bicycles on the roof terrace and whatever, and sometimes just sitting on the edge of this really tall tower block, and I never felt uncomfortable. So I think, and then my mum would come by and see us sitting up there and have a total meltdown.
As mums do.
But I was constantly jumping between the buildings as well. So
how big a gap and how big a drop?
It was about 4 or 5 stories tall, and it was maybe a gap of about 2-3 feet. So yeah. Great.
You were bred to be a climber.
Yeah, I guess I've always felt really comfortable at heights. Yeah. So I think it's just that's kind of what attracted me to climbing then.
It's probably why possible. I think, like you said, you got taken into the climbing community pretty quickly, and I think most people who get into climbing do, because the climbing community is just a wonderful bunch of people.
It is.
But if you've got that kind of real big passion for it, and it kind of stirs something that's already inside you, that gets put across quite quickly, and you definitely put yourself into the community, embed yourself into the community quite quickly. So it's So was it the same kind of feeling then when you went to do your CWA at the time? That kind of, oh, I want to do this. Was it that kind of moment, or was it as you were kind of doing the consolidation period? You're like, actually, no.
I think it was during the training. It was during the training. So, if you know Ewan, he's a really amazing instructor, and I think it's just the way he ran the training that made you feel like you could be an instructor and help people get into it, help people enjoy it. And yeah, it's like that kind of job where you're actually seeing the difference you're making for somebody. Perfect example is the wee kid that I've been coaching for the last 4 years. His journey started with a taster session, and he's like absolutely crushing it now. So
yes, he is.
You can see the difference it makes in people's lives. I think that's the thing that also kind of drew me to it. Just trying to make that difference. Potentially also like the kind of welcome that I did get into the climbing community, like being someone that's come in from a different country and not really having any family or anybody here, having left all your friends behind. It does tend to get like quite lonely. But then when you're suddenly surrounded by all these people and they've welcomed you and you just feel so comfortable, I think that was also quite a big draw.
Well, I bet you. Yeah. Like you said, you consider yourself a citizen of the world.
Yeah, a global citizen.
And I think the climbing community, just the kind of attitudes that we all have, lend ourselves to being the same kind of attitude. Like if you enjoy the same things that I'm doing, you're instantly family.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's really nice to hear that the community took you on so quickly.
It did, yeah.
When you're instructing them, obviously you did your CWA assessment, started at TCA, moved over to Ratho. TCA is a bouldering venue, Ratho mainly routes. I'm not going to say the bouldering rubbish. I would never say that on a podcast. I'd never be recorded saying that.
No, you wouldn't.
But obviously two very different styles of instructing, bouldering instruction and rope walk. Which did you have a preference for which one, or was it you enjoyed the challenge of both?
So I think when I initially did my training and assessment, I had it in the back of my head that I was going to end up working at GCC and just have a mixture of both climbing and bouldering. As it turned out, TCA needed instructors, and that's where I ended up. And I wasn't so much into bouldering at the time, but I grew into it. And I think I'm grateful for the fact that I did start at TCA, because being an instructor in a bouldering world is a lot more challenging. Yeah, because if you have kids for an hour and a half, you have to fill that session with things that they can do and not get bored. Whereas in a climbing wall, where you're tying in, putting harnesses on, and there's quite a lot of time in between, and not so much thinking on your feet. So I think the experience of being a totally new instructor and having to put yourself outside of your comfort zone and think on your feet, problem solve, and run sessions and make sure everyone has fun, it was good.
I think you've got 8 kids that spend 30 seconds on an attempt on a boulder problem. Well, there's a lot of 30 seconds that go into an hour and a half.
Yep.
It's a stressful environment.
Well, yeah. It can be. I think I handle stress quite well.
In a rope wall, you've got everybody tied to the one rope. It's a lot easier.
It is. It's easier to manage. Yeah. So I'm grateful for the start that I had. It meant that when I did move to Ratho, I felt more comfortable being an instructor. I had still kept up climbing at other places, so I had still kept up my rope work and everything else, so it wasn't too much of an adjustment. And yeah, I enjoyed the transition as well.
Do you find, obviously you've now worked in a bouldering venue, you've worked in a rope venue, the instructing styles are kind of pretty different. When you're instructing in a rope wall, there's a much heavier element of this teaching the safety aspect, the rope work aspect, the belay, tying knots, putting harness on. Whereas in a bouldering wall, because you haven't got that, it's a lot more coaching kind of things.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still some safety stuff that you need to teach people in a bouldering wall.
Yeah.
But not quite as much as.
Not quite as much.
Yeah.
I don't know. You correct me if you've noticed this or not, but it takes a lot less to teach those safety parts of a boulder wall, and then once it's tech, there's less of an emphasis
Yeah,
on it.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, like an induction session in a bouldering wall is an hour.
Yeah.
But a startup is 2 hours minimum.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to teach. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a startup and you're teaching people how to safely tie a figure of 8 and they don't get it in 2 hours, that's a lot more dangerous than giving someone an induction in how to supervise their kids safely or boulder safely in a bouldering center, I guess. Yeah.
So, how did you find that transition then, going from a bit more coaching elements in your instruction to having to have a bit higher emphasis on just the safety aspect, constantly making sure that dial?
I think I quite enjoyed the challenge,
Yeah.
to be honest. I really enjoyed teaching people the startups, like taking the startups. I really enjoyed them. And maybe I kind of blended a little bit of the coaching into it as well. So it would always start with teaching the basics, teaching the safety, teaching to tie the knots, teaching to belay safely. And then once they've got that dialed, spend the rest of the time giving them wee techniques for climbing and how not to pump out too soon and not to climb with really bad footwork and stuff like that. So maybe I would take a little bit of the coaching and add it into the safety.
Yeah.
But then the sessions at Rathel were quite varied. So you could be doing a startup and then you're on a taster session and then you're doing a personal coaching session. So it was quite varied.
I think I've noticed in the decade and a bit that I've been doing this that instructors that have maybe gone the other way through the pathway, so started in a rope wall and then maybe moved to work in a boulder wall, they find that transition a little bit more difficult, and there's definitely not as much coaching going on. It's how to be safe, and that's fine as long as everybody's leaving the centre with a smile on their face. Then they'll come back, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But I think the instructors that actually become better instructors at the end of the day follow the same path as you did. Having that maybe slightly more stressful but coaching element, and then working a rope wall where you can blend those two a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think instructors that start at rope walls might struggle a little bit more trying to add the coaching element into their pretty set ways of doing things.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I think the good thing about being an instructor is just kind of there's no set way to run a session.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own style. Everyone will tailor the session to how they feel comfortable delivering it. So there's no right or wrong. As long as you're teaching the correct safety, there's some things that are standard and then everything else is just how you deliver the session, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's quite cool. It's quite unique.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get that in a lot of other sports. Everyone's a little bit more regimented in a lot of other sports. I think it's nice seeing now lots of instructors, obviously you're of a younger generation of instructor.
Thank you.
That are a lot more flexible to different ideas and switching up instructing styles and coaching styles and blending ideas and stuff. And like you said, as long as you're making sure that everybody is safe, you can then play about with everything else. And if people are walking away with a smile on their face, fantastic. If they're walking away with a smile on their face and they've become a better climber at the end of it, even better.
Even better. Yeah, absolutely.
But in saying all that, you've ended up now at Eden Rock, back to a bouldering centre.
Back to bouldering. Yep.
What brought that decision on? Was that do you prefer?
What brought that decision on? I guess I had been at Ratho for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was time for a change. I felt like I needed to be doing something slightly different. I didn't know at the time that it was going to be Eden Rock. It was just a spur of the moment decision. And then, just a chance conversation with Mike Mullins.
Yeah.
Landed me in Eden Rock.
Nice. Nice.
So it wasn't planned. It wasn't intentional. But I think personally, I kind of feel like you never stop learning. You have to keep going. You keep growing. And I think I was at a place where I felt like I wasn't learning anything, and I wanted a new challenge.
Yeah.
And it's
the exact same reason I took this job.
Yeah.
Exact same reason I took this job. And it's good. Like, it's good that you recognise that, because I think a lot of people get to that stage and they don't recognise it. It's stuck.
get stuck in.
So do you find then that instructing in a kind of bouldering environment with that little bit more stress and having to think a bit quicker on your toes and come up with stuff a bit faster it lends itself to you learning more about? Do you learn more about your own instructing yourself, or how to analyse different people, what they need?
I think a bit of both.
Yeah.
You definitely learn more about yourself, and depends on the type of sessions. When you're running like the NICAS sessions and you've got loads of kids and you know that you need to keep them entertained for the hour, otherwise they're just going to become really naughty and misbehave themselves. So you have to think quick, and you have to make sure it's kind of structured, and then some days it kind of tests you more than other days, and you learn yourself where your test lines lie. It makes you more resilient as well, I think. And then when you run the adult classes and it goes totally different, you learn about delivering those classes in different ways. Every personal coaching session is completely different, because every individual comes with different things that they want to learn, and then you have to structure that session based on that. I would say that that's probably one of the hardest sessions, because you're meeting someone for the first time. They're telling you what they want to learn. You have to assess where they're at and whether that's really what they need to learn, and then tailor that session to that. So it's quite tricky.
It is really tricky, because sometimes you've got the experience to know what someone needs, but what they want is vastly
So different.
Where does your preference lie? Obviously, you work with kids, you work with adults. Obviously, with the work that me and Callum do, we focus mainly with kids, and that's definitely where my preference lies, because we're both massive children ourselves. But where does your preference for instructing lie?
I like the mix. I do like the mix. I like working with kids. Equally, I like coaching adults. I think before I became a climbing instructor, one of the things that I did think I would end up doing was being a teacher. And I guess it is kind of like being a teacher. It's not a classroom, and it's not a school, but it kind of is.
You've got your own classroom.
Yeah, the climbing wall is the classroom. I enjoy working with kids. I think ideally, in an ideal world, I would be teaching kids climbing outdoors. That's more where I would like to be. I'd like to be outside doing stuff with real rock. But I mean, I'm happy in the climbing center as well.
Oh, there's time. I'm going to really backtrack here.
Okay.
So, there's not much developed climbing in the Seychelles.
No.
Really not.
No.
You said you worked in the
Printing press.
The printing press, and then the
Holiday
chalets. I've seen that some of the holiday chalets have got bolted on holds, plastic
Okay.
holds on
No.
the granite. Just
Okay.
it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart.
Okay, that's just one venue.
Uh-huh.
It's a massive big hotel. It's actually a big.
So this wasn't your doing.
It wasn't my doing. I had nothing to do with that.
So, would you ever consider going back to the Seychelles to try some of the climbing, or, taking your knowledge of instructing and working with kids and coaching, and you say you want to work outdoors at some point. Is that something you would consider at some point?
Yeah,
Maybe
I think
go
so.
back and try to develop some stuff out there.
Possibly. I mean, I did go back for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I took my shoes with me. And there's hundreds of boulders on the beach.
Yeah.
Hundreds of them. So in between chilling on the beach, sipping cocktails, I did do some beach bouldering.
Yeah.
I was on my own in terms of I didn't have anyone that would want to try any climbing, which would be trad
Sorry,
climbing.
bouldering is not climbing. Okay. So this is the one that works in a bouldering wall.
Yeah, so I didn't have a belayer or a climbing partner.
Yeah.
So it was just bouldering. But yeah, I would love to go back and explore the rock, see what's there. I think that there's definitely like scope for some bolted routes, maybe some trad.
Yeah.
In terms of a climbing center, yeah, I think there's also scope for that.
Yeah. I think with the luxury of lovely granite boulders on the beach, I think running outdoor sessions for kids, in my head, I'm like, I want to go and run a real rock
Yeah.
in the Seychelles. It sounds and looks amazing. If you're listening to this, just Google climbing or any photos of the Seychelles. These boulders will blow your mind. I think that would be awesome. And you wouldn't need an indoor centre to start them.
No, you wouldn't.
Go hang out on the beach.
You could definitely start outdoors. I do think there's maybe one or two people that have probably done a wee bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot. There's nothing like recorded, and there's no routes that have like officially been.
There's definitely some bolted routes. I've seen photos of
No,
bolted
so
routes.
that's a hotel. That's in a hotel.
Really?
Yeah. So there's one massive big granite rock.
Yeah.
In a hotel called Constance Ephilia, and they use it for their in-house guests. So you can top rope. So the Seychelles actually is made up of smaller islands. It's made up of 115 islands. The main island is Mahe, which is the biggest of the islands, and there's hundreds of boulders on Mahe alone. But the best boulders are on one of the smaller islands. There's an island called Ladig, which is the third island in the group, and yeah, that's iconic. Like most tourists go to that beach just for photos with the boulders.
Yeah. Is that the one that's got the big boulders that looks like it's got runnels all around there? It just looks stunning.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go to the Seychelles and run some climbing stuff. I don't know about you.
Best time of the year to go would be like November, December, January, because it's cooler.
Yeah.
And when I say cooler, I mean that temperatures go down to about 26 degrees.
So not that much cooler.
No,
Yeah.
it's still hotter than a Scottish summer
And you moved here again, why?
because of the winters.
Because do you do any winter climbing?
I have done once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah,
God, that's a whole nother podcast.
it is. Yeah.
Have you managed any this year?
No, I
Not
didn't
yet.
go out this year.
Do you think you will? Conditions are still probably going to be good for another few weeks.
Maybe. I can be convinced.
I mean, I live in Fort William now. You want to come up and go do a route?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's the Seychelles, I guess. Yeah, I would love to explore what can be done out there.
Yeah.
I think before I left, my life as a manager of a printing press was totally different. It was a 9-to-5 office job, and I didn't really get much time to do much outdoorsy stuff. But before I left the printing press, I had taken up sea kayaking and road cycling, and I would cycle before work around the entire island, which is possible.
As you do.
And then I would kayak after work until the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much like my release from the 9 to 5 job. And that made me realize that I didn't want to do an office job, which is why I moved to the holiday chalets.
Yeah.
It was a much more chilled 9 till 3, and lots of time to just kayak and do outdoorsy stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
But after moving to Scotland and before becoming a climbing instructor, I did some work for Scripture Union Scotland, and it was their holiday camps in Glencoe Village.
Oh, really?
They had water sports like for the kids,
Yeah.
and we would take them out kayaking and canoeing. They had mountain biking, and we do canyoning, and we would go rock climbing, but just top roping outdoors. And that's when I really fell into instructing. That's when I thought, yeah, absolutely great. I would be a kayaking instructor or something. So I did a few courses. I did my coaching for kayaking, foundation safety rescue, and stuff like that. And thought, I'll take us back to the Seychelles and open an outdoors company or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Little adventure business out there doing everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Nice. That would be awesome. What a life that would be.
Yeah,
Definitely get slightly drier
definitely.
weather. Less snowy winters though.
Less snowy. I would miss the snow, I think.
Cool. I'm psyched to see you continue to develop as an instructor, and we're route sitting here today. Like as a setter, it's cool that you've joined the team.
Thank you.
I really like that little brown problem you said right at the start of the day. I think
Yeah,
that's
that was.
actually really entertaining. But yeah, it'd be cool to see you continue to develop here and hang out with more here. But if you do ever end up out there, I will definitely be out for a holiday at some point
You're more than welcome.
to let you take me on an adventure.
Hey Bob, you can come over to the Seychelles. You'll have free accommodation.
Awesome.
Just pay your flights and just get out there.
Done.
Yeah.
Done. I'll sleep on the beach. I don't need accommodation. It's cool.
It's fine.
Wow, cool. I want to go to the Seychelles. If you don't want to go to the Seychelles, just Google Seychelles boulders and then you will want to go to the Seychelles. What an incredibly beautiful looking place. And Karishma came from there to Prestwick. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, Karishma, for sitting down. Next time I promise there will be better audio. But whether you're climbing in Prestwick or you're climbing in the Seychelles, do remember to do your buddy checks.